Hi, I've been meaning to film this video for a while, but it's funny because I was supposed to film a completely different video today, but while working on the outline for that video, I realized that I couldn't make that video without making this one. So here we are. As you've seen from the title, this is a topic that is unique to everyone, and my story is something that I was scared to share. It was something I just wanted to keep to myself, but there were times in other videos where I kind of like mentioned it or like hinted at it, but I never like fully like sat down like I'm sitting down right now to tell you guys about it. And it's scary, to be honest. When I was outlining the other video, the moment I realized that I had to film this video before I filmed that, I just froze, and I immediately started to talk myself out of it, like it's not necessary, it's not needed. But as soon as I realized that my first instinct was to say no, I realized I was going to, because as much as it's scary and very personal to talk about this, my spirit I just felt led to talk about it, and it's really hard right now to get the words out, but it is something I'm gonna talk about. I mean, I am sitting down here already talking about it, but yeah, so let's get into it. I'm not freaking out or anything. Okay, before I get into the details of how everything changed for me in regards to my relationship with God, I'm just gonna start from the beginning, just give you guys like a summary of, you know, growing up and everything. So I was born into a Roman Christian family. I am the third of 3 girls. I love my sisters, I love my parents so much. Shout out to them. I remember when I was younger, I always struggled like waking up and going to church on Sundays, but it was just kind of like one of those days where it felt like bonding time for the entire family, especially like on the way back from church, because it was like we were like filled with the spirit. It felt that way, and then we were like jamming to Christian music in the background, and there was this particular sermon that always came on in the background. But yeah, going to church, I remember, was always a struggle, like getting up early, because mass is usually like around 6:30 in the morning, and if we're lucky 9 sometimes. But I remember it was really hard. And then after high school, I came to India. I moved to India for college, and where I studied, there weren't a lot of, you know, churches, specifically Catholic churches. So I developed the excuse of not going to church because I couldn't find a Christian church. I'd call my parents like once in a week or once in 2 weeks. They would ask me like, hope you're praying, hope you're reading your Bible, we know you're not going to church, but like just, you know, still try and develop your relationship with God any way you know best. And I think I prayed and read my Bible for the sake of it, and mostly because I was doing it as a way to like please my parents and, you know, be able to tell them, oh, I did it, but not because I was actually trying to build a relationship with God. That's the worst thing to say, but it was the truth. And now looking back on it, I just it's so, I feel like I want to smack that little Jane, you know, in the face, like, get it together. Okay, so fast forward to the COVID period. I was in isolation for almost like 8 months, and for an introvert, that is usually a good thing, when you can be alone and stay away from people and just like be by yourself. That's the literal dream for an introvert. And for the first couple of months, like for the first 3-4 months, it was amazing. Like I loved being on my own. Like I was living the life, living the dream. I remember that was the period I was like, I've always loved books growing up, and that was the COVID period. It just like everything kind of changed for me. I was reading more of mature content that I wasn't supposed to be reading. Yeah, I created an entire video about that. You guys can go watch that. In that video, I talked about how I switched from that genre of books I was reading to the genre that actually got me into reading. Hey guys, it's a few days after filming this video, and I just realized there was something I kind of left out, because the video I linked talks more about that, and a part of me did not want to have to go through that discussion again. But I didn't want to leave this part of my testimony out because it's like the most crucial part. And although I did explain it in that video, if you do watch it, that is great. For those who do not watch that video, I just did not want to leave that part out. A huge part of what played a role in me hitting rock bottom was actually reading a lot of content, as I mentioned, that I wasn't supposed to be reading. I loved reading books as a teenager, and it kind of developed into me writing my own books. And I sort of got into reading and writing like the romance genre, and let's just say over the years it kind of went from just being romance to what it actually is now, erotica. And there's a lot of mature content in it. And when I started off reading and writing, I was in it for what romance is, like just getting to read about two people falling in love with each other, and that was what got me interested in reading and writing romance. But as the years went by, romance stories started going from having little mature content to so much mature content that nowadays if you pick a romance novel, it's probably going to be like 50% of mature content. And then erotica on its own is completely like, it's just filled with so much mature content. And this was back in college. I was just a young adult at that point, and no matter what age you are, mature content is going to affect you, and not in a good way, not in a positive way. And let's just say, as especially during that COVID period was when I got into reading more, because I was on my own for a really long time. So reading was the thing I kind of went to. It affected me so bad, let me just say that. And that was one of the things, aside, you know, the isolation and a few other factors that made me hit rock bottom. But yeah, reading that genre was what made me hit rock bottom. I don't want to take away from my story. Like, I love my testimony the way it is, and I just love how it played out for like God's grace to shine through. And it's what like makes me look back and I'm like, my story is literally, it's mine, and it's what allows God to shine through. I do know that if I was reading another genre of book that did not have mature content, things would have played out differently. I might not have hit rock bottom, and I might not have found God the way I did. So I am grateful that I went through that journey to be able to hit rock bottom, to be able to find that God is my rock. I just felt like I had to say that because it's a major part of my story. And if you do watch that video I linked, then that is great because I talk about it a little more, but that is more in the me as a writer perspective, and this is more like my testimony perspective. I read so many books that year, and I got to a really, really dark place. Like, not only did the isolation kind of like pull me to a place that was just dark, it was also the stories I was reading, the books I was reading. As I suddenly like was pulled into the darkness, it just felt like I was slowly getting distanced from everything and everyone, and I just felt like not myself. Like, I was seeking for things to, you know, feel the emptiness, and I was mostly grasping for things of the world, and I was going to certain books that with a lot of mature content that didn't do anything for me now looking back at it. And because of where I was at, a lot of things just kind of, it got in the way of a lot of things, my friendships, and I was just in a really, really bad place. And the following year, I think that was 2021, I was still, you know, just going through it, and it's just got me to a place that I wasn't happy with. I wasn't proud of myself. And I remember going back home to stay with my mom's family, my family. This one was kind of like home away from home. It was home, but no one was there. I remember being by myself then again, and at this point I was trying to do things that would exhaust me so that I couldn't feel the internal exhaustion that was going on. And I remember that was when I started working out, like so bad. Like I used to do yoga before that, and then I just started like working out. 10 minutes was a lot, let's be honest, especially if it's cardio. Please don't come for me in the comments. So I remember I was trying to like exert myself physically so that I will not feel my mental exhaustion, and just at that point I didn't even know it was like a spiritual thing. And then I remember I literally fell apart one night. I just like hit rock bottom, and I remember just coming to God in that moment and just praying to him and just being like, I have no idea where I'm at. I have no idea what to do or where I'm going, but I just really need you. I just really need you right now. And I felt like a hand kind of reached out to me in the darkness and like pulled me into the light. I don't know how else to explain that, but I felt that like that. There was a quote I read on Instagram a few days ago actually, and it was something along the lines of God only lets you hit rock bottom just for you to realize that he is your rock, or something like that. And I screamed like internally. I was like, this is what I was feeling. This is it. I literally hit my rock bottom, and that was when I realized that God is my rock. Like, I remember everything changed for me in that moment. Like, it felt so like this literally is gonna change my entire life, but it wasn't so obvious. It wasn't like I did 180, but it just felt like this is revolutionary. It just felt that way, and I just can't explain what I'm trying to say. It's funny that I'm a writer, but I don't know how to explain what I was feeling at that moment. But okay, how do I explain this? It felt like the biggest change of my life. Like, I was set on a new path. I kind of slowly tried to remove that certain genre of book that I was reading from my book list. By the end of the year, I knew that in the new year it was just gonna be a thing that I promised myself that I wouldn't do. But that year, I remember I already started to kind of wean myself from it, because I don't want to say, it's kind of like getting addicted to something, and you know it's hard to like get out of your life, but you know you need to, but it's hard. And so I did that. I stopped reading erotica, and for a while it was easy, but after a while it just got to a point where I felt like I was like craving it, which I didn't like. And I remember I just started being intentional about like spending time with God, and just surrounding myself with people who understood, where I was at, people that kind of drew me like closer to God. That year, so many things happened. I lost friendships, and it was very hard. And there were times I'd literally like doubt those decisions. Like, do I really need to stop talking to this person? But then I would remember conversations, and I'd just be like, yeah, you really need to. This isn't the type of conversations you want to be having with people, and you want conversations that just, conversations that renew your spirit. And I took it one day at a time. That year, I also discovered my favorite podcast, Mornings with the Masters. It's a daily devotional that I have been listening to since that year. I just somehow came across it that year, and it was one of the things that drew me closer to God. My life literally changed that year, and it keeps on changing every year as I get closer to God, as I keep on diving into his word and getting to know more of him, more of his character. And that year, it just felt like that solitude, it was necessary for me to be able to find myself in the identity of being God's child, and not being my parents' daughter or my sister's sister or my friend's friend, or just literally just being a child of God. And it wasn't easy. Being on a journey with God is not easy, but at the same time, it was so beautiful. It was so peaceful. It was so like it. Looking back on it, it felt like it was preparing me for so many things that came afterwards. Even till now, I feel like everything that I've been, not just my entire life, but from that moment that things changed, I feel like was a foundation for all the things that came afterwards. Because after I graduated, it literally took me a year to get my first job. And if I hadn't encountered God before that, it would have been the worst for me. But I found peace in that. I found joy, and I just saw God working in all the ways that he does. I'm very certain that he was also working behind the scenes, that there are a lot of things that he did that I'm not aware of. But that's just the beauty of it. Like, doing life with God, it's going to be hard because you're going against everything that this world is for and that your flesh wants. There are times recently, like a while ago, that it felt like I was being pruned, and that is truly the hardest season because of how all the things you didn't know about yourself, they actually come to the surface, and the Holy Spirit reveals all of these things to you, and you start to realize that, oh, this is not good. I shouldn't be doing this. And then you try to work on it, and then after a while it gets to a point where you're like, oh, I have handled this, I am no longer struggling with this, and then you're fine. And then another time, at the most random time, when you think like that is in the past, it comes up again, and you're like, why am I going through this again? Like, why am I going through this again? It's hard, but at the same time, I wouldn't have it any other way. I'd rather do life with God and just, go through so many hardships because there's peace in it, there's joy in it, than not do life with God and have a life with all the things I could ever want and not having peace, and just literally worrying about the next thing, worrying about, tomorrow, or the food I put on my table, or the clothes I wear, or literally just worrying about, things of the earth. But there are a lot of times I have fallen short, but I always try not to, dwell on the shame, on the guilt, on the not feeling like I could ever be forgiven, but actually going to God and just telling him how I feel and just coming to him and feeling peace in that. But there are also times when we kind of stray away from the path that God has us on, and then we sin. God is a loving parent, and when we sin or when we do something that is not good, like will not benefit us in any way, he punishes us. And it's not a sign of I don't love you, it's a sign of I love you so much that I do not want you to die. And by die, I mean dying to your spirit, like literally spiritually dying. Times when I was younger, and I'd just be like, why are my parents doing this? Why do they have to like teach us these things that are so hard to learn? But doing those things makes it a habit. And then in recent years, I have been just doing stuff and just smiling and being constantly grateful to my parents for like teaching me that thing, and just realizing that that is what God does. He tries to teach us in everyday lessons and hardships that we face. He wants us to grow in character, grow closer to him, and we will not understand now what he is doing, just like I didn't understand what my parents were doing when I was younger. But there will come a time when I will just be like, oh my God, you did that. You're the reason that I am able to do all of these things, and it's just so beautiful. Proverbs 13:24 says, if you don't punish your son, you don't love him. If you do love him, you will correct him. Hebrews 12:6 says, because the Lord corrects everyone he loves and punishes everyone he accepts as his child. Proverbs 3:11 says, when the Lord corrects you, my child, pay close attention and take it as a warning. Matthew 16:26 says, Will people gain anything if they win the whole world but lose their life? Of course not. There is nothing they can give to regain their life. And this is in line with, us going away, straying away from God and just sinning and just looking to the world to fill us, and then gaining everything we think we want in life, but actually losing and dying to our spirit. And that is the reason why God corrects us, God protects us, He punishes us when needed, because that is what a parent does when he loves his child. And just looking at how God sees me as a child just makes me want to, please Him and just make Him proud in everything that I do. And so when I sin, when I go against Him, I'm literally just looking for ways to make it up and just... But that's the thing with God. Once you come to Him and confess your sins to Him, He forgives you. Something I've been struggling with lately is just like, I know I do not have to earn God's love. But that's the thing, just because I'm His child, I just want to do things to I want to live a life that, will make Him proud, make Him a proud dad, a proud father. And there was this thing I heard, my favorite podcast talked about this, but then I think when they mentioned it, they kind of give credit to another person, but this guy holding a yarn, and he kind of opened it up and said, from this beginning to this point, literally this much is our life and the rest of it is eternity. Why are we so focused on just this part when we have eternity to look forward to, storing our treasures in heaven rather than looking for treasures on the earth? Because when we die, those treasures are going to be here. We are not taking them with us when we die, literally to the afterlife. You're not taking them with you. And there's a passage in the Bible that talks about it, your heart is where your treasure is. So if your treasure is here on earth, your heart is going to be here on earth. If your treasure is in heaven, your heart is going to be in heaven. Promise you that everything that I'm saying, I am learning, that I will keep on learning. There is no end. Just when I think I'm done with something, it's gonna come up again, and it's gonna come up again, and it's just life. It's just the beauty of life, and I'm trying to come to terms with it, because if you look at it from one point, it can be frustrating, but when you look at it from a different perspective, it's just incredible and beautiful. Literally finished eating my food and I'm I didn't pray. And all of these things, I'm trying to make a conscious habit, to make it a habit. I remember that first year when I was trying, just getting deeper, build my relationship with God, I had to unfollow so many people on Instagram. I just had to make a decision to purge a lot of things from my life, including reading that genre of book that I mentioned earlier. And by the way, everything that I'm saying right now is still something that I'm working on personally. I don't want it to come off like I have perfected it. I am still in the thick of it. If you find there's something that is distracting you from your walk with God, then you probably need to take an inventory and just be okay, these are the things that is not making me build my relationship with God. How do I go about taking it out of my life and just making it a habit to remembering that eternity with God is longer than my life here on earth, and then actually making that conscious decision to choose God every single time. And it's hard. There are times that I have not chosen God in certain situations, and I feel so this guilt, not having the interest to go to church. It just feels like you're in a constant battle with yourself. And I say that because your flesh actually wants to curl up in your bed and just Netflix and chill, not go anywhere, introvert here. And so we're constantly at war. Your spirit is willing, but your flesh is weak. And oh my gosh, life is so beautiful. Anyway, I've said this already, but I just want to say again that I am still learning, and every day, every single day I fall short, but the whole point is getting back up and just running back to God, because He's the only one who can save you. He's the only one who saved me, and He saves me every single day from myself. And I feel like I've said so much in this video without saying anything, but I hope it reaches someone out there. There's a lot to learn, and you will find everything in the Bible. Just pick it up and just start reading. You will find it so relatable with your situations, and every single time you read it in a different season, it means something completely different than what it meant the other time. So yeah, that is all for this video. Thank you guys for watching till the end. I am so glad that I actually found the time to make this. I realized that, oh, today I didn't have to go to work, it's a holiday, and I was like, oh, I get to film this video. And then the first thought that comes to mind was, do you really need to film it? So yeah, this is me telling the enemy, not today. I will film it. Okay guys, thank you so much for watching. You know what it is. Till next time, till next video, stay blessed.